Flip out the web chat. All right, everybody. Oh, we are streaming, and I think we're using the same title as we did last week. Don't worry about it. We're going to talk about other
Nice.
things. I don't need. Oh, yeah, but I mean, it's a good thing to pick up on. Okay, whatever. We're the same title as last week. I just don't have the patience right now to go fix that. So, but we're going to be talking about, I don't know, all kinds of weird stuff. Where were we? What were we talking about 2 seconds ago? Oh, what kind of pet would you have? A lion or a tiger or whatever. What would be like the your animal friend? Would you have like if any animal could just like be your
Right.
friend and live amidst with you, near you? Who would be your friendly animal partners in life?
Yep.
So
Everybody comment. Let us know what kind of animal you like. What's your
yeah,
favorite
Shakti,
animal?
what animals would you have?
It's a split between lion and tiger, but if I had to pick, it would be a tiger. So
Cool. I would
yeah.
I would have a lion and a gorilla, silverback gorilla, and a lion. Like they'd be my bros, and we'd just hang out, and
Cool.
we'd go on like raids. We'd go like raid the supermarket or 7-Eleven together.
I know.
Just stir
All
shit
right.
up, break
Okay.
stuff, loot. You can't
Cool.
stop us. I'm a
All right.
dude with a lion and a silverback gorilla, and we're just tearing apart the restaurant, eating everything in sight. Um,
Awesome.
yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
So let's
Everybody,
get.
let us know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Hey.
I don't
Yeah.
even know what our subject matter is today. Oh shit! Look at our
Well,
web chat
we
doesn't seem to. I don't even know if our web chat is working. Please, if you're actually seeing this stream, give us a comment or a heart or a smiley face or something in the comments because I need to see that they're working. If I don't see one in the next 30 seconds, I'm gonna try to reboot that and see if it'll work.
All
Um,
right.
but we actually might not have anybody watching this right now. That is perfectly possible. So, peace to all. Okay, yes, great. So
Cool.
we have a YouTube. Can okay, great. All right. Okay, we got Facebook too. Excellent, excellent. Okay, anyone have anything you want to talk about? Go ahead and shoot because we are like hitting this with our pants down. A bunch of our tech is broken, and I just said screw it. Let's just do it. Let's just go out, and that's why our subject
Cool.
is like the same stupid subject we had last week. But maybe there's more insight. We can talk about deep archetypes of the unconscious that manifest themselves as things like elves and vampires and werewolves and gnomes and gorillas. Silverback gorilla, I think, is an archetype. I think like that is an archetype I like to uh, be in. Like I feel like a gorilla a lot of my life, and I also really relate to lions. So like there's something about them. This is like I just kind of fall into that archetype, and that's the other interesting thing is that people. Uh, I'm sure everyone's noticed this. People tend to look like different creatures, So if you look at someone, it's like that person looks like they would have been a dog in a past life, or they look similar to a dog, and that person looks like a lion, and that person looks like, you know, I wouldn't take offense if someone said I look like a gorilla. I feel like a gorilla a lot of the time. So, I think
Okay.
that we can even like feed into archetypes of different creatures. My daughter tends to remind me of a bird, and she always wants to fly in the sky. And so I think she's like kind of hits into that archetype of the bird. And in fact, her name is Ava, and we named her Ava because like there was this bird essence to her, even in the womb, we could sense it. So totem
Wow.
animals. That's what it is. Totem animals. Someone just chimed in. So,
Wow. Okay, we could talk about that. Wow.
totem animals? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but honestly, crowd view, like, tell us what you want to know and talk about. Like, we're open up for any different kinds of subjects. But
Yep. What?
um,
Yeah.
yeah.
What were we
Okay.
talking about last night? What was the most interesting thing we hit upon last night that we could keep
Oh, last
riffing
night.
on? Oh, my mic isn't very close to me. Maybe this will be louder.
Holy crap, we're all
So,
over the place here.
yep.
Well, from last time, what we weren't able to cover elves completely, so we talked about zombies and vampires. We thoroughly scooted them out.
Oh, and we said we'd get
uh,
back to elves, and then we
yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
Um,
So I don't know as much about elves. Well, I do. I know how you can go in that direction
so
and choose
I think computer
archetype. But
programmers, really good ones that love to just craft their computer code are pulling from an elfish nature to do that. Anyone who's like really into a craft of any kind where you're building something, I think that's an elf archetype that you're pulling from, the people who are particularly gifted with it. So if you're really good with your hands, and you're very mechanical, or you're very good at building really how to say, like, robust software, I think that's like all elf nature stuff. So I think probably Silicon Valley or any like place where there's a lot of people working as programmers, I bet there's a lot of what do you call it, affinity with the elf archetype there.
how do you connect that? Tell me how you connected that, because I wouldn't have known that. You majored.
Well, it's because I majored in
Yeah.
computer and worked at Microsoft research, and spent my life, running high tech startups. So and so I'm very elfish myself. I call, when it's Shireen and I, we call it like Garrett Schmerit, but maybe we should like rename it, because that's kind of derogatory towards my elfish side. It should be like, I'm in elf mode, which is cool. Okay, so somebody said, "Hey Garrett, how's it going? Interesting thing I did in my teens when I drew elves constantly. Deconstructed one of my drawings and came up with an alien gray." Oh, so like, are elves and alien grays related? I mean, probably. I mean, I don't know. How do you?
No,
You know what's
no, they're not.
okay? They're not related. Shakti says no.
Well, oh gosh, the Greys that they're going extinct, okay, and it's because they can't reproduce, and so they're going to try to hop on board anybody else's archetype race, but they're very smart. So, who said that? We got Tina.
Um, yeah. So, all right. Look at. So Shakti's gonna say stuff to you, like she knows, like she's got a way of, quote, knowing things, that she really trusts her intuition or knowing, or a kind of facet of knowing things. I don't know, Shakti, where did you get that information from about the aliens going extinct? Shakti?
I'm here. I'm here. Where did I get it from?
Yeah.
Gosh, what are we coming all out right now? Like, is this all transparency? We're all on board.
Well,
All right, if you're asking that question.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I have spoken with them multiple times. They're experimenters, and they're very interested in me and my body and how my brain works, and so they're all over the place. It's like they have no boundaries, for crying out loud.
Now, okay. So I'm just gonna keep like please don't take offense, because it's more based on like curiosity and just a playfulness. But it's like, okay, so when you have conversations with them, is this like, you're meditating and sort of intuitively going inside or going out of your body or something like that to have this sort of inner monologue conversation with them? Is that what it is? Or like, are they abducting you in the middle of the night and bringing you to their spacecraft and you're having conversations there?
Second one.
Really? Holy smokes. Okay, well, this is so I think you're the first person I've ever spoken to that says they're being abducted by aliens in the middle of the night.
No,
So,
well, I'm not the first one. Are you kidding?
no.
Talk
First
about
person
all
that has ever told me this.
Yeah.
Okay. So you literally experience in your physical body, like, being taken onto a spaceship or something and having conversations with these aliens.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not just with the Greys. It's with there's a plethora and a multitude of races out there. There are Syrians. People come from different star constellations, and the problem is that the races that don't have any respect for whoever it is that they're experimenting upon, is they're doing it with under their unconscious knowledge, and so it's multidimensional. So when I speak with other races, I actually give them permission. So I've gone up and spoken with Syrians as well. But the Greys they're a little pushy. So, but we'll keep it light,
Shakti, I gotta interrupt you. Two
they're good
things.
people.
Shakti,
Yeah.
two things. You need to move your camera so it's pointing a little bit to the left of you.
Like,
Or you're no, move yourself so you're pointed a little bit to the left of your camera because
okay.
the comments are over your head. And then the other thing is if you're tapping on anything or doing something like or your computer's running too many windows, like you're cutting in and out. So something's either tapping or cutting in and out while you're talking. So both of
Okay.
those, let you straighten those things out.
That's better.
That's super. I don't know, man. You really challenge um
God.
my skepticism, you know, and I'm not a very skeptical person. I'm sort of, I actually maybe I am kind of skeptical. I'm skeptical, but I believe in art. I believe in creativity. I believe in imagination, and I believe in mysticism. And I believe that there are transcendent realities that are like way beyond anything we're consciously aware of. So it's like I do have all this underpinnings of like, you know, I'm not a materialist. I'm not somebody who thinks that, you know, if I can't physically touch it, it doesn't exist. I do believe in bigger realities than what my five senses tell me about.
Yeah.
And I also believe
Okay.
that science has no clue, or not no clue, but I think science is very limited in what it's discovered so far. So I think there are a lot of things that are out there. But to hear that you actually have been taken, like, so tell me about like just one experience you've had with the aliens. And I don't want to hear like sort of the meta stuff about what they are and how
Okay.
their civilization works and all that stuff. I want to hear
Yeah.
about your own personal intimate experience. Like first, you
Mhm.
know, they knocked on my door or whatever, like you know, the thing that, like, tell me the actual story of an encounter.
I want to talk about Sirius then because they're the ones that I gave permission to um, come talk
what what
with
is going
uh,
on with our, sorry, you're cutting in out so much, and I think it's an internet thing, so I'm just trying to see if there's um my internet connection is unstable. That's really frustrating.
is it me or is it you? Okay.
I don't know.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, everybody. Okay, first of all, I'm going to talk about gosh, people that get in front of the public eye will not speak about these things. They're way too afraid to speak about them because they're afraid of their reputation and what people are going to think of them. They're going to be called crazy, and so there are plenty of people on this planet that are very closely connected with these races. And I just wish people would get some guts and actually sit down and talk about it and look into it. Um, I know plenty of famous people that know about this and they won't even speak. So first of all, like let's be nice. But I when I spoke with Sirius, I was actually building a relationship. Sirius.
Okay, so your voice is completely cut out. I don't hear you at all. Okay. At this point in time, do you feel that the unseen world is also going through volcanoes and uprising, like in Venezuela and such? Well, that's interesting. So, you know, there's volcanoes and earthquakes and disruption in the physical world. Do you think the unseen, unphysical world is going through similar changes and
Yes.
disruptions? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Because yeah.
The answer is
People
yes.
are okay, yes. We'll keep it easy. And Garrett.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Um, can I hear you? I don't know if I can hear you, Shakti. Hello? Mm, I mean, I see you, but I can't hear you. Oh, no. Oh, Okay. Well, so we'll keep rambling on here while Shakti tries different ways of break. Oh, I hear you now.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you
Hello.
now. Yep.
Okay. All
Some.
right. We'll keep it like this. There we go.
Yep. I mean, what? I don't think it was where you're holding your mic. I think there's literally some sort of internet. Um, Communism is the greatest disaster happening in Venezuela. I mean, that's an interesting point. Um, and Margaret says hello. So communism being a disaster, I mean, I think Sigmund Freud would agree with you that, and I think Jordan Peterson would agree with you. Why is this elf stuff coming up now? I feel like a lunatic. Okay, tell us more. Again, why you feel like a lunatic because elf stuff is coming up. Oh my God, I just had this weird deja vu experience just now about talking about elf stuff and somebody saying it's making you feel like a lunatic and it's affecting people. I just had a weird experience, like literally just now. Is this deja vu about
Okay.
elf stuff? Okay, so we should keep talking about elf stuff because whatever it is, it's hitting some sort of nerve, and I think it's activating elf nature in people because I just had this weird deja vu with that comment. So Morgan, keep talking because you are triggering deja vu in me, and I would like to know why. I always think of deja vu as like a sign of something. I mean, how could you not, right? Like you experience deja vu and you're like, wow, that's a profound experience. And in the Matrix, they say something has changed in the Matrix. I was talking about elves and archetypes at the same exact time as you. Oh, weird. And then I had deja vu about you telling me this. Okay, so Morgan was talking about elves and archetypes at the same exact time as me. And then she comments saying, what weird, we're having like this thing at the same time. And I had deja vu about her saying that. Morgan, please, let's get in touch with each other. My email is Garrett, Garret, @wayseers.com. I want to talk with you more even after this show because that is weird. Okay. The unseen realm and the abyss on the other side of the firmament are filled with trickster demons who pretend to be whatever you preference, whether that be elves, goddesses, dead ancestors, and more. I totally agree with that. I think there are, I mean, even if it's like, okay, the unseen realm and the abyss, like, what is that? That could just be more of your mind. Like, we have dreams, and if our dreams are filled with all of these characters that we're having dramas with, conversations, fighting with, running from, chasing us, you know, like all that stuff. And all of those characters that we're tangling with in our dreams are just part of our unconscious, or they're part of like some super unconscious or whatever they are, but like they're in our mind. And so, you know, it's totally feasible that if you can have a dramatic encounter with some creature or person in your dreams, then like anytime you're kind of going into that netherworld of beyond, oh man, I hope our internet's not terrible. You know, okay, so Morgan says, I imagine myself as an elf princess and then watched Lord of the Rings for the first time. That character in my imagination, oh my gosh, is Galadriel. I will email you. Morgan, it is so funny you say that. It is my daughter's birthday today, and when she was in utero, I had the experience that she was like that elf princess in Lord of the Rings. Like her spirit was like very much like that. And then it's turned out to be very true. Can they manifest in our reality? When I was little, I had interesting experiences. Can elves manifest in our reality? What are you asking, Carolus? Because I don't know what you're specifically saying, but I think, yeah, the old shit coming up to let it transmute into light and let it go once and for all. Pink Floyd sings, "The lunatic is in the hall." All right. That's amazing. Happy birthday to her. Okay. Yeah. So, yes. So email me, please. And let's keep talking, Morgan. Keep chiming in. The elves can manifest in your reality. And the way we were talking about it last week is that people can become very elf-like. And so there are sort of elfin people. There are people who just sort of channel the spirit of the elf, or their soul is very elf-like, or their body. I think Shakti was saying DNA was more the cause of that. So maybe like your lineage happens to be, I don't know, attuned to that elfish nature. It's hard for me to say definitively where it comes from, but I definitely have experienced a number of people in my life, including myself and my daughter, who are like, they're like exactly like an elf, or they're not exactly like an elf, but they're so much like an elf. They're like, you are an elf. Like you've channeled the elf, you become the elf. So, and elves are great at making things. They're very accurate, specific. They're very, I mean, like the Lord of the Rings, I think has the archetype pretty well down. Go ahead, tell me, Shakti, what's going on for you?
Well, humanity has a choice. They have a choice. They can, and this is for the future. You can either become an elf, which, by the way, they're highly, highly preferred, or you can become a gray, someone that actually can't reproduce. So, our environment, our whole entire planet is highly polluted, and depending on which direction you decide to take the planet, which it is, it's humanity's decision, will determine on what they manifest and what they turn into in the future. So elves are very highly evolved. They're highly evolved. They're beautiful. They're very conscious beings. They're connected to trees, to the networks of plants and animals, and they get along very, very, very well with nature. On the other hand, those that are, oppose nature, you're gonna screw yourself. And I think it's really important for people to know this, to decide and choose what they're putting in their bodies, what kind of air they're going to breathe, what kind of corporations they're going to support, what kind of religious systems, what kind of political systems. All this carries into the future of humanity. So it's very simple. Do you want to be an elf, or do you want to be a gray? Do you want to be something that is going to die out and destroy the earth in the process with it, or are you going to work with the earth? It's black and white now. So we're moving away from the gray. At least that's what I want to do. So
you're saying the elf and the gray, they're two polarities of the same archetype. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're polarities. I mean, genetically modifying and screwing with with people's bodies, you're going to mess up. Like these creatures have just gone so far down the rabbit hole that they've ruined their reproduction system. And so what they're doing is they're cloning, and they're doing everything that they can to keep themselves alive and well, which is extremely, extremely sad. When a race is going extinct, it's like they feel panic, they feel anxiety, depression, and it's, and then their spirits have got to find different bodies to inhabit now. And so it's just how it goes. But yeah, if you take care of yourself and you take care of the planet, we're going to go in an elf direction. So does that make any sense? What comments we got?
Yeah, so you might want to read some of those. So do you so here's a comment. Does okay, so a couple of things. Someone said that they have pointy ears. I do too. It is a mark of the elf. so enjoy that. Me and Morgan are jamming on the elf thing. I don't know what this is. It's weird. I mean, there's got to be some elf spirit that is being awoken. Someone else talked about dreaming on another plane, and you show up in the dream during a time of crisis or a major life-changing moment. For the you in your dream to serve as a guide or to intervene in a manner like a guardian angel. So like, whoa, I mean, that's blowing my mind. So you like show up. That's just even hard for me to understand. Someone else is saying, if you've been following my work, I think you are a real truth seeker. I'd love to have a one-on-one convo sometime. Please reach out at Gmail. God bless you. I gave my email address before. It's Garrett, Garret, at Wayseers, WAYSEERS.com. Send an email to me there, because these comments are kind of what do you call it, ephemeral. They'll go away. I won't be able to find that later when I'm looking for it. So, but I'm happy to have a talk with you. Happy to maybe have you on the show. Also, if you have anything you'd like to say right now, go ahead and just like say it. We're conversating right now, and this is the forum to do it. You know, this is when I take time to try to be here and be available, and we can have an interesting conversation. Right now, we're talking about these elves. I guess the positive or negative side of the elfin way, and it seems like there's this negative expression of your elfish nature, which would be a gray. And I can okay, so let's look at that. The gray, like what that triggers in me is sort of the autistic side, and autistic is not the right word because I don't mean to use it in a derogatory way, but sort of like let's just say, like, because he's an easy target, Zuckerberg with Facebook, right? So they have this movie, The Social Network, and you can kind of see that this guy is just an asshole. Like he's cut off from his feelings, and he's way too like heady, and he's just not in touch with his human side or something of that nature, and is willing to just like kill or hold on, I just want to read this before it gets knocked off. Trinity mission, cold fusion. Helium wasn't created by smashing two hydrogen wrong hydrogen atoms fused. Oh, I can't even read this whole. This is okay. So I'm gonna ignore that comment because I don't even know what that's saying. And back to what I was saying is, I think there is a tendency for very creative. Creative's not the right word. Really good makers. Okay, we'll call them makers. Elves are makers, and like there is like the sort of quasi-autistic or autistic spectrum makers like Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, lot of like CEOs of Silicon Valley or tech startups. It's like they've got this kind of disconnection. Peter Thiel, it's like there's a disconnection from that like organic, sloppy, human, loving side of you that has feelings and empathy for people, and a very strong affinity with like how machines work and how computer code works and logic and sort of like cold logic and reasoning. Another great example of an elf like this would be Dr. Spock, or not Dr. Spock, Spock from Star Trek, right? So he's like doesn't have a whole lot of feelings. So the Star Trek explores this thing like crazy, and he's got the elfin ears. So he's like a gray in the sense that, like, I like to think of the good elf as more like the elves in Lord of the Rings, or the elves you would see helping Santa Claus make his toys. They're like happy, cheerful, or just very like organic in a way, or like very heart-centered elves who also still have the high level of intelligence and maker abilities. But then there's what I would say grays is just to riff on what Shakti's saying, and I'm talking ragtime here. I've never thought about this before, and I'm not pulling from any information aside from like divine inspiration if it's happening. And what I'm kind of gathering though is that if you got that elfin nature and you just get like too caught up in your head, too intellectual, analytical, too disconnected from your heart, that you can just become sort of very sociopathic with your elfish skills. You can become really good at building a computer company that rules the world, but not so good at your relationships. You know, so it's like that's I think that's something to maybe that's what the gray nature is like. You can conquer planets. You can with your intelligence, but you might not be so good at having a girlfriend. So it's like, you know, I think there is that spectrum. I think that's possible. Okay, now I'm going to just jump into some of these comments. It's not just the battle within that we continue to fight. 7 deadly sins, I think they said. Doug, talking about creation. Wow, yes, something like that. This is the living example of the Wayseer Manifesto. You are all welcome. Doug said something's the living example of the Wayseer Manifesto. I have no idea what Doug said before that because I must have missed it. We're either sheep or goats. I'm a sheep and I have a good shepherd who laid down his life for me. Peace. Okay, so this is Miss Ruby. And then one more person said, what about Terrence McKenna, Machine Elves? Yes. Okay, so first to answer Miss Ruby, I think I've been deeply, deeply invested my whole life in Jesus. Like, I love Jesus, okay? He's my bro, he's my savior, like all that stuff. And at the same time, I don't get afraid of like entertaining ideas and expanding my mind and like knowing what's going on in the world and talking with Shakti about, you know, all this sort of astral level stuff that's out there. Like, there was a time I was very afraid. There was a time I was very afraid because, like, all the people in my little spiritual healing community, it was a Catholic, charismatic movement that I was part of. And I still consider myself part of that movement. But at the same time, it's like those people were very afraid of the boogeyman, of the demons, of the all the stuff that's going to come at you. And I think it's good to have caution and fear. Fear is probably not the right word. Caution around sort of negative entities or demons fucking with you. You don't want that. I agree with that. So you want to stay away from that. At the same time, I think there's a lot of beauty in that our souls can experience by being open to that beauty. You know, I don't know how to say it. It's like you don't want to be the person like locks yourself in your room, won't go out to the parties because you're afraid that like some, you know, bad person's going to be at the party and fuck with you. It's like you got to kind of build up enough courage and know that like if you are if you're devoted to Jesus Christ and you're worried about this, like you shouldn't be, because you're devoted to Jesus Christ. If you're devoted to Jesus Christ, you got like mad spiritual protection. Like you have like the Mac Daddy of like all that is good and light and powerful. You got like the Son of God who's got your back. So don't fucking worry about the demons, because the Son of God can handle those demons. I think it's just good to like be open to experience. And the fact that you're here, Miss Ruby, I think is like a good sign for you, because you wouldn't be here listening to this live stream if you weren't curious and open-minded and creative. I think the temperament is called openness to experience, and openness to experience opens you to not just, you know, possibly negative demons and things like that, but also opens you to miracles and to a higher state of grace. Like your mind is more open to God, so it's like enjoy that. I feel like Shakti wants to say something. Do you want to say something, Shakti?
I do. How many of you want to become a god? Just raise your hand.
Well, okay,
How
so
do we get there?
yeah, so it's like that becomes a tricky one for Christians, because Christians regard that as ego aggrandizement at a level that God has said, don't do this, right? You know, but you said, who wants to become a god, right? So that's the thing that gets weird, is like, as soon as there's many gods, that means none of those many gods can be all powerful because there's many of you, right? So that means a god just means like I would say, I'm going to reinterpret what Shakti is saying, is that your soul can become very, very powerful and very expansive. And at the same time, I think there is a right kind of humility where you say, I'm not bigger or more powerful than like the ultimate creator. Like I'm not trying to unseat the creator of my soul. I think that's an important humility for us to have, even as we're trying to sort of expand our minds and consciousness and learn more about what's out there. Okay, yes. I'm gonna hit Larry's thing about talking about the machine elves. Yeah, I mean that's fucking fantastic. I think the machine elves are it. Like I think Terrence is expressing the machine elves because I'm sorry, I got distracted by comments. I think Terrence is talking about the machine elves, or describes these entities he's encountering in the DMT experience as machine elves. Because they're very powerful and they're creating all these things. Like they're just creating, like their words aren't words like we're making with our mouths. They're actually like these glittering objects that are floating in space, and like they're actually manifesting like things as their words, and the language is like goes so much further than just small mouth noises. And these elves are like, these machine elves are really good at creating them. And why he says machine elves is because they're like not like really in these human bodies. They're in much what appears to him is much more like machine bodies. So I think that's a very interesting archetype. The other thing that's interesting about that is that the DMT experience of that area is regarded by the Buddhists as the lesser lights. And the lesser lights is where you go as you're dying. Like when you die, like that's the last place that you could be and still be tethered to your body. You take one more step and poof, you're beyond your body. You can't come back. You know, you've walked through the door. So the lesser lights is like the furthest a monk, a Buddhist monk who has basically devoted themselves to exploring that territory. That's as far as you can go without dying. So that's really interesting, because if there are beings there that are like trying to communicate with you, maybe those are angels. Like maybe they're not. Like some people describe them as aliens, some people describe them as machine elves, but some people describe them as angels. A lot of people who've kind of hit that space, not doing like free-based DMT, but like maybe they had a near-death experiences those beings that are waiting for you is angelic or angels, or maybe a deceased relative. That's another thing that some regard these beings could be as ancestors. So who knows who or what they are, but I think there is the ability for us to commune with these beings that don't speak our language, but can still, I don't know, get information to us.
Tell me, but what is that realm called where you take one more step? Is there a name for it?
It's called the lesser lights.
The lesser lights.
The idea that we can become gods is a massive deception. The more you buy into that, the more you open yourself up to mind takeover. Take note of the narcissistic behavior of the love and lighters. Okay.
Okay.
So
Can I
like
address that one?
Yeah.
Or no, Garrett.
Well, I just don't.
Really
don't.
careful.
Yeah. I just like don't get your feathers ruffled by that statement.
My feathers aren't ruffled. They're not.
Yeah. Okay. At the same time, like I think there's truth in the statement. It's like you got it. Like the narcissistic desire to have more power and glory to the ego self is definitely something to watch out for. And I think it is a seductive element of personal growth and spiritual growth, is the desire to do it not to be closer to God or to achieve greater peace and love in your life, but to achieve greater power. And to stick with like this whole Lord of the Rings thing that came up with the elves, it's like that ring of power in Lord of the Rings is a great symbol of the temptation to regard that ring as a tool to wield power over others, as opposed to what the humble hobbit does with it, which is carries it to its rightful place, or is a good custodian of it. So it's like, I think the spiritual gift is very much like having that ring of power. It's like the spiritual gift is having the humility to accept the spiritual gifts, experience the spiritual gifts, be a good custodian of the spiritual gifts without trying to use those spiritual gifts to wield power over others, or to get things from the world, or to aggrandize your soul or your body and ego in the world. And I think anyone who succumbs to that temptation to try to become a god so that they can be more powerful and so others can worship them, you're now on what is like, the highway to hell, because eventually everyone who is worshiping their own ego as opposed to cultivating their own soul is in for a bad time. Like eventually shit will catch up with you. You will become empty. Life will become tasteless. I have a lot of friends, and I've had the blessing, I guess you could call it, of experiencing a lot of wealth in my life. So I have a lot of wealthy friends, but I also myself have experienced a great deal of the nicer things that the world can offer. And I'm got to tell you, more often than not, I would say 9 out of 10 times, that really fancy dinner and that fancy hotel room and that fancy everything, like the dinner doesn't, like it's fancy, but it doesn't like it doesn't have the sparkle to it. It doesn't taste like, maybe the food technically tastes more interesting or better in some ways, but like there's a glow to a homemade meal that could be very simple and very inexpensive that a lot of the fanciest restaurants can't achieve. You know, like there is a beauty in just the simple life that the fanciest things in the world are just like vacant. It's like being in a hospital. It's sterilized. It's not real. It's like this fabrication of, it's a bunch of elves making shit, but their hearts aren't in it. And so, and all the wealthy people are like indulging in, you know, the speedboat and, or the yacht and the fancy food and all this stuff. But it's like, it's empty. There's an emptiness to it, and you can't be nourished by it. And the only thing you can really be nourished by is love and light and spiritual light is what I mean. So, okay.
Agree.
Go ahead, jump in. I'm going to be reading comments while you jump in, Shakti.
Okay. Well, when it comes to being a god, there's a system set up in place. Not everybody can do it because it is the stewardship. There's a humility, there's a level of humility that has to be attained and experienced, because when you have that kind of power as a god, you're affecting other beings, other parts of source, butterflies, gorillas, tigers, trees, humans. Everything has a consciousness and a living soul. And if you aren't a wise steward with that power, you can do some major damage.
Okay.
And what happened is, now let's go back. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I want to jump in with what you're saying, because I'm drawing a correlation. So it's like right now we are, like you could say, you know, people who are trying to be be gods. You know, it's like, oh, shame on you. You're obviously you're on the wrong path. Thing like that kind of concept. But for anyone who's saying that, well, let's look at what people already are like gods. Like technology has already put us in a place where we are like gods. We reign over, cattle and livestock and farms, and we are exercising power over the lives of hundreds, if not thousands, of animals per person. So every person has their own sort of dominion, where you are in control of all the light in your house, you're in control of all the computers, you're in control of communication, you're in control of all these lesser beings or sort of subservient beings, whether that's your pets or that's livestock that feeds you, or that's just other people down the chain of command in some organization you're in. And so in that respect, you are like a god to those beings that are sort of in your service or under your control. And so to think that to try to grow that is basically capitalism. I mean, it's basically, that's the and I'm missing these comments. My God, let me see if I can read the end of this one before it goes away. I don't know. That gets us away from the place where we think we're on the first name basis with the entity that invented matter, space, energy. That's a delusion which tempts us from oh my God. Christ consciousness is a huge deception as well. I bought into it. Christ consciousness is wait. So define Christ consciousness, because I believe in Christ, and does he not have consciousness? And would I not share consciousness with him when I pray with him or to him, or so tell me about that, because I believe I believe in the consciousness of Jesus Christ, and I would try to tune into that, and I will often say as a prayer, Jesus, take over my mind, if you will, and direct my thoughts in a way that is most holy, So it's now, is that not, I mean, granted, we can all mince words here. So if that's not what you mean by Christ consciousness, tell me what you do mean. Singularity, oneness with Lucifer, Masons are down with that. Holy shit. Okay. But you know what? There's one or two people in these comments that are just throwing out some mad stuff. And then we have Shakti on the other hand, throwing out some mad stuff. I don't even know what to do with all this because this is like we're talking ragtime here. I don't believe anybody really knows. Well, I don't believe anybody really knows any of this stuff definitively. Like these are all belief systems that are just clashing like crazy, not grounded in a whole lot of experience. Unless you are, please talk about your own experience because that would be interesting. I think the elf archetype, Larry is saying, I think the elf archetype is true in the abstract person way because it has symmetry on multiple levels and has tropes of benevolence, creation, and joy from total, transcendent, hyperspace to mundane. Okay.
This is our audience. You know these guys. Like they are elitist. Like these ideas, even though they're far out, there's definitely something.
Okay, so someone just said our Christ troll is saying Christ is beyond consciousness. Yes, of course he's beyond consciousness, but does he not have consciousness? If Christ is not conscious, then Jesus Christ, like how did he walk the world? And of course he's conscious. So, but he's beyond consciousness, right? But you see, consciousness is Lucifer's thing. But wait a second, like consciousness is everybody's thing. Maybe it is. Maybe Lucifer plays with consciousness. I don't say that that's wrong, but I also think like all living beings have consciousness, right? So tell me more about that. Okay, we have a solar eclipse at 8:11. Oh, cool.
Really?
Solar eclipse coming up, Jesse says.
Holy cow.
All right, and somebody says, you are smart. All right. All right, so where were we? I have no idea where we are anymore. But it's a good time, and it's really interesting. Okay, it's crazy since your last live stream, everybody is talking about vampires. Well, yeah, I think, okay, so vampires, again, are those related to Greys? Like, can we say that, like, could elves become vampires? Yeah, I think they could. I think vampires are different though. Vampires are exploitive, right? Or they're just power hungry, or they feed on the life blood of others. Lion's Gate portal open. Holy shit. Okay. Wow, you're all blowing my mind here. Okay, okay, so you know this? You know about the Lion's Gate portal opening? I mean, yes, okay, here's the thing. All right, beautiful. So I consider myself a pretty far out guy, but you guys are all like taking this to the next level on me, and and vampires are narcissists. They are soul suckers. Yeah, and
okay, we got to be nice. They're good vampires. Like
there are good vampires. Like, yeah, watch Vampire Diaries. Yeah. Like, there's good vampires, or the originals. Okay. This is what my daughter has me watching. I wish I could find an elf show for her because these vampires, they can be kind of vicious and gory. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think, and what's interesting about these shows is the kind of shows that you can be a monster, but not monstrous to everybody in your life. You can hold that monster power at bay and use it deliberately in a positive way. Okay, Kano says, I know the energy of vampires is rising. Just talking about it, and maybe we don't talk about it. Oh, okay, so somebody's saying like, you get what you focus on kind of thing. Then somebody else is saying like to be a virgin vampire hunter. Wait, I once met someone who claimed to be a vampire hunter. I mean, just go to Wall Street. If you're a vampire hunter, just go to Wall Street because like all those people are like vampires on our economic system. I'm not trying to troll you, Garrett. I invited you to a private convo. You said go ahead. That's why. No, I don't. I'm not saying you're like when I say troll, I didn't mean like in a bad way. My son trolls me all the time. It's like it's more just like what do you call it? When you say, I don't know how to describe it. It's like. I don't like you get your goat like a little bit like it's good. No, I keep going. I'm just saying like you were sucking my attention into explaining I feel like I'm high and I'm not high. I just read in a book the passive aggressive personality is vampiric. Yes, I mean that anytime you're sucking on somebody's attention, you're being a vampire. It's a vibration thing. Draining with vamps is very tangible. Good monster are like drill sergeants. Yeah, exactly. Like a drill sergeant is a good monster, or a good coach, or a father. I think fathers need to be monstrous at times, just to kind of help the kids get stronger and get into it. Like, people are sloppy, lazy blobs if allowed to be, you know, like we just are. Like, people will devolve into very negative.
Only in the world we live in. It's
Okay,
only
but
because
like your job in the world we live in, because our world is full of vampires and monsters and temptation and all that and all kinds of weird stuff. So it's like, in our world, it's like, you know, you kind of need to be, you need to have a monstrous tool at your disposal, you know, the sort of psychic tool of becoming monstrous, to combat that stuff at times. And then also sometimes, you know, you be a bit of a monster as a coach or a teacher or a father or a drill sergeant, when, like, the drill sergeant's like, you're all soft. you're not gonna survive war or the places we're sending you if you continue to be soft, you know. And this world can be a really hard place, and so sometimes the person who's been to those hard places and has developed their monster side to survive those hard places and even thrive in those hard places, then comes back to a softer place and has to convey or teach the soft blobs in the softer place how they can survive the harder, harsher world that's out there. And I think that's kind of like the father's job, the mother's job. Like, I mean, I'm being very sexist here or whatever, but it's like, sort of the archetype of the father is, you know, the archetype of the mother is to nurture and coddle and make you feel warm and fuzzy and loved, and the archetype of the father is to come in with his monstrous abilities that he's developed out in the harsh world, and kind of slowly but deliberately introduce the children to, like, you're gonna have to deal with this shit when you're no longer living under our roof, so I'm gonna teach you how to fly, I'm gonna teach you how to, you know. Okay, someone just said, I was being covered in a greasy slime and it made me physically sick. I have no idea what we missed there, but it looked good. Okay, someone says, pretty obvious that this is the indoctrination they are pushing on mainstream media, is to normalize vampirism to the youth, so they seek that lifestyle as a cool thing to do. This is something I really agree with you on. And the Stardust 777, if you have a name that you'd like me to call you besides Stardust 777, let me know. But I really agree with you on that. I think vampiredom is like, that's what Wall Street is full of. That's what sort of I think of as like this vampire class of people who live in sort of the upper reaches of high finance, if you will, and are just sucking the life out of the common man.
Let's talk about, like, the purpose of these vampires, why they've been here for so long, because they have a purpose for it. A lot of the times, you know, religions say that we come down here to suffer, right? We come down here to suffer and to pass a test, and then once we pass that test, we get to go home to God, right? That's the main theory in every single religion. But the thing is we actually come down here to evolve. So when you go through traumas, let's say that a spouse dies, let's say you have a child die, let's say that your house burns down, like, all these things that you go through, what they do is they fracture and they split your spirit and your soul. And it is quite a test. It's a huge test, because it expands you. And if you can overcome that, you know, go into something really hard and then become soft, so become the monster, and then use those monster skills that you have for the greater good of the universe, then you pass that test and you are a higher evolved spirit. Bam, that's one life down. Okay. And then you keep coming back here over and over and over again as reincarnated spirits, and hopefully, you know, just depending on what path you're choosing to go down, you can go darker or you can go lighter. So if you choose dark path, like, it's going to affect you life after life after life, and then, you know, you start getting in debt to things. You get into debt to those souls that you're hurting, and it comes back. And so it's a balance. It's just balancing decisions, and that's why being very judgmental it's very impartial. It's very difficult to judge someone that you haven't walked in their shoes. So that's why we have God, I guess, because he can see everything, right? But I don't know. What do you think? Is that hard to catch on to?
It's a little hard,
Yeah.
and it's just complicated
Okay.
by it's a little hard, but it's just complicated by we have a funky connection. So as you're
Yeah.
speaking, your audio's really kind of clunking
Grr.
around, and it's unfortunate because I really want to hear what you're saying, and I'm catching most of it, I think. But and I like the thing that I really liked about what you said is that, you know, judging others is a real trap, even vampires, because it's like maybe that vampire, that soul who's living that vampire existence, has a reason for being there, like a sole purpose for being there and being in that existence, and only God should judge. And I like that because, like, you know, nobody knows the whole story, and nobody knows how one's actions will affect everyone for the rest of time. I have to read these comments real quick before they disappear.
Okay.
JC, Jesus Christ, CERN is tearing the firmament to free them from the abyss. The New Agers celebrate this as thinning the veil, as they are being used as puppets. The Pope is leading the way. Wait. Are you saying the Pope? Are you saying the Pope is on the not working against Jesus Christ? Because, like, I kind of dig this Pope. The last Pope, I would agree with you. I think the last Pope, that dude was an asshole, and he was not only an asshole, he was a Nazi. Like, literally, he was a Nazi. I think he was not Hitler Youth. He was Hitler Youth. I'm not kidding you. That dude seemed evil. And as soon as he became Pope, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It was just seemed like that's horrible. This new Pope, though, I dig this guy. So I hope you're not saying that this new Pope is doing some shitty thing. I became and met monsters during an LSD trip last week. Turns out dragons are real. I'm a dragon. Dragons are real. I'm a dragon. I'm the fire dragon according to Chinese astrology, and I dig it. I totally. That's one other creature I would have in my band of creatures. So not just the silverback gorilla and the lion, but I would have a dragon. Pete's Dragon. I loved that movie as a kid. I would love to have a Pete's Dragon.
Yeah. I got 3 of them.
How does Wall Street sucks? Okay, so what I was trying to say about Wall Street is, and this is coming from a guy who was in Occupy Wall Street, so maybe I'm a little jaded here. But what I was trying to say is that our economic system, human productivity is like continued to skyrocket over many decades. In the 1950s, they did calculations about, like, this is, you know, human productivity is just, wait a second, I'm trying to get the right. Human productivity is just going up and up and up like this. And they were like, try to do a calculation. It's like, if everyone just keeps getting more and more productive like this, like, you know, right now it takes one parent working a 35 to 40 hour week to provide for the whole family. But if their productivity keeps going like this, by this time they figured, you know, you'll only have to work like 5 or 10 hours a week. One person will only have to work 5 or 10 hours a week to take care of like a whole family of 5, right? So it's like, but is that happening right now? No, most people have 2 parents working like extra hours, sometimes 2 jobs. So you've got 2 parents putting in like 60 hours a week each to still try to, and having trouble making ends meet, but they're way more productive. So where's all that wealth, all of that productivity going? I think what's happened, what we've seen since the 50s, is this new kind of job or class of people that's like working in the financial sector. And it's like, and that financial sector seems to be kind of bent on taking that extra productivity that should be going, and the wealth created by it that should be just going to the worker, and finding other exploits for it, such as reinvesting it, putting it into, there's all these different ways you can invest capital now and move capital and protect capital, and tax avoidance and tax shelters, and there's just like so much, and insurance on that stuff, and then bond, you know, and then trading these stocks, and then creating like these other financial instruments. And it's like, so there's all this activity that is just basically vampiring on human productivity, and that big extra value that people are now creating with all of their work. It's like all of that value and all of that wealth is being sucked out of the system and into like the financial sector, where they are just doing all these manipulative things to basically suck out all the wealth, just like the blood, just so like they're just vampiring on human productivity. And then you have these very, very wealthy sort of people on Wall Street, and Wall Street's become extremely wealthy, but like, are they delivering the value? Like you see these people, it's like they're not working a whole lot harder than the guy who's actually producing the value, the maker, okay? The person that's actually making stuff. They're designing the next iPhone, or they're designing the next computer, or they're designing the software, or whatever. The people who are making stuff that is of true inherent value, like they're not experiencing as much of the wealth as like these sort of, I don't know how to say it, people in the financial sector who have found ways to sort of twist and tie up all that extra productivity into like new financial instruments and ways to trade and ways to get rich quick and all that. And next thing you know, these people are making hundreds of millions of dollars by just manipulating ways to manipulate numbers. It's all imaginary stuff. Like they're just manipulating ideas about numbers, which are just ideas about money. It's like insane. It's crazy. I don't know, that's just a rant about the financial sector, but I do think like Wall Street represents this financial sector gone run amok, where it is probably eating up about 90% of the wealth created by human productivity in this kind of meta level that just inserts itself and sucks the life out of our corporations and you know what's being produced. Go ahead, Shakti. Sorry for ranting so hard, but go ahead.
What do we say about those guys? What do we do about those guys? Just kidding. Be careful.
I just missed the dragon comment. Sorry, I missed it. I hope others got to read it. I heard the Club of Rome Part 2 have sold out humanity for certain promises. Okay, I'm assuming that Club of Rome is the Vatican. Is that what we're talking about? I don't know how you sell out tell me more, Jed. I don't know what I just read there. If you are following Q, you know we are funding the other countries in the G7. Okay. They are real, but their appearance is a deception. They are demons. We see less than 1% of the light spectrum. That gives Lucifer a lot of playground. He specializes in sound and light. Okay. Life's, I think it's Little Stardust 777. Please tell me how you know where you're getting this information from. Because I think that's another thing is like, are you reading this somewhere? And how do you know what you're reading is true? This is the thing that I'm also asking Shakti, because like that's why I was asking her about the Greys. I'm like, did you really meet them and talk to them? Because like if you literally have spoken to somebody and this is what they've told you, that's very interesting. If you read this somewhere on the internet, it's like, how the fuck can you know that that's real and not something that somebody just invented as an idea? Okay. Christian literally means Christ-like. The current pope is the most Christ-like pope we've had in my lifetime. Connie, I gotta agree with you. I think this dude really seems to have the humility and the compassion that we'd want a pope to have, and he seems really devoted. So unless he is, you know, hoodwinking us all, and I'm not that cynical to think he is. I think yeah, I agree with you. I think we have a really great pope right now. Humanity sold themselves out, Little Stardust says. I mean, yeah. Capitalism is a big sellout move. I think capitalism is nearing the end of the line for how it's currently working. I'm not saying there can't be a new form of capitalism that continues to work, but I think capitalism was great for fueling the industrialization and the industrial revolution, if you will. But now that we're approaching a time when robots and artificial intelligence can do most of the work, if not soon all of it, there's really no, capitalism doesn't seem to be appropriate in that kind of setting, because capitalism is supposed to reward the people who are making the innovations and building the companies and fueling the industrialization, the industrial revolution. Like capitalism is supposed to reward those who aren't just lounging around doing nothing, but are actually getting to work. But now when there's going to be less and less work to do, what is that reward appropriate? And even beyond that, like capitalism tends to reward that person who figures out that new next thing, that new next level thing, and then they get the boon of everything before it. So a few examples of that is like Bill Gates figured out, like, I mean, all he really did originally was he figured out that IBM needed an operating system, and he knew a guy who wrote an operating system, and he managed to insert himself in the middle and say, okay, I will connect this company that needs an operating system with this operating system I know that already exists. I'll buy that operating system and license it to this other company, and boom, Microsoft becomes this giant cash empire based on that. And so did Bill Gates deserve the tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars that he created because of that, just putting, one and one together? I don't think so. I don't think he actually did billions of dollars worth of work or even contributed billions of dollars worth of innovation. He just simply made that connection and took it to the next level. Zuckerberg, same deal. Like the guy, MySpace already existed, social networks already existed. Zuckerberg kind of figured out, well, if we made social networks really anchored in people's real identity, and did it that way and made them a little bit private, and then boom, Facebook is, this $100 billion empire. So it's like, now, it's not to minimize these guys weren't working their asses off to do it, but the point is, like, one human being cannot work their ass off enough to warrant that the toils of their labor is directly worth hundreds of billions of dollars. But that next dude who figures out that we just do this little tweak on artificial intelligence. You take all these existing artificial intelligence algorithms and stacks and whatever, and you just say, and if we just do it this way, all of a sudden we've got working general artificial intelligence, and it can do all the work of every thinking person in the world. Do they deserve the hundreds of trillions of dollars of wealth that creates just for having that one idea that is based on the innovations and the progress that all of humanity has worked together for over the last few hundred, if not thousand years? Like that's what we need to realize is like, okay, there has been 1,000 years worth of human progress that has led to this point where someone can have the idea to, if we connect these two things, boom, now we have thinking machines that can think better than we can. Do they deserve all the wealth in the world for doing that? And I say no, and I think that's why capitalism is broken. And we're gonna have to figure out some way to solve that before some dude does figure that out and says, no, I win everything, I get everything, because that's how the system is set up. That's how the game is set up right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, go.
All right.
You sound better now. Go ahead, talk.
Okay. Well, for Garrett, you got a sore spot there. Can everybody tell he's mad? He's mad because we got all these guys in these high places that are sucking and siphoning from everybody.
I'm not mad at all. I'm just saying I'm not mad at all, but I'm just saying, like, it's a game that's broken.
It's
like,
not fair. It's not fair. It's not a fair equal distribution, and I completely 100% agree with you. And the way that we fix it is we wake people up. We tell them exactly what's going on and why it's going the way that it's going, and we give them certain key consciousness techniques to be able to jump into those astral realms so that they know what's going on behind the scenes. Once you go behind the scenes, you know everything that's going on, and it's shocking, it's traumatizing, but it's what's going to pull Earth out from under the thumb of all these jackasses. I'm sorry, I call them jackasses. I don't like them. They're destroying the planet, and they're destroying people, and they're turning them into vampires. So, I don't know. That's just, you take it, Garrett. I don't know.
All right, so I'm going back to little start at 777. She's saying, I loved your We Are From the Future series. I was totally down with that. I was deceived. Let's talk privately. You have people on here who are serving evil. Little start at 777. I really don't know what anybody is serving besides myself. Okay. And I think, like, what Jesus taught was that we're not going to stone the prostitute because she is serving evil. we're going to befriend her and make her part of our tribe. So thieves and prostitutes were welcome as Jesus's apostles, because we shouldn't be judging, but we should also be coming from the light within us. So that video, "We Are From the Future," that is an expression of my inner light. That "Let There Be Light" chorus, and it was me singing into this microphone, "Let there be light." And I deeply believe in that, and I'm deeply devoted to Jesus Christ. And at the same time, I can be downright evil, so I'm not going to judge anyone else. Like when I fuck up and I'm an evil son of a bitch, I hope to be forgiven for that. And when other people are either, expressing like being an evil son of a bitch, I hope they'd snap out of it, and I will forgive them for that. But at the same time, if someone just has a belief in something that they read on the internet or saw on a video or whatever, or some friend told them, and you would classify that as evil, it's like, well, okay, maybe they're mistaken, and maybe it is an evil belief or a wrong belief or what have you. But fundamentally, it's like the only way we convert people to Christ's kingdom is through love, because that's what Christ's kingdom is, Christ came in and he said, okay, look there's all these rules of the Old Testament, and they have you chasing your tail in all kinds of ways, and everyone's worried about stuff, and they're having to make sacrifices to the God to appease this Yahweh God, and you've all got it all screwed up because you're just being mean to each other. And really what God wants is love God with all your heart and love thy neighbor as yourself. That's the New Testament. That is the new gospel. And if that's, wait, hold on. So that's the new gospel, is love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. That's the new gospel. That is what Jesus came in saying. And if you don't do that, if you don't love thy neighbor as yourself, then you're breaking Christ's one commandment, So it's like, anyone on here who's talking ragtime about stuff that's bullshit or evil or wrong, it's like, I still got to love them as myself, and we still got to like find that way to love each other and to have fun with it and play with these ideas and talk about the ideas, push them around a bit. And that doesn't discredit what We Are From the Future, where that was coming from. I feel like that was coming from a very holy place. And at the same time, it will attract all kinds of people who are participating in this, and we just have to sort of say, all right, it's, God is throwing a party and everyone's invited, so let's not judge each other based on beliefs or looks or anything, even if you're a thief or a prostitute, like or a vampire, all right. So go ahead. I know you had something to say, Shakti, but I needed to rant. Oh man, I just missed a comment.
I'm not gonna tell. No, nobody's ready for it. I can't.
Okay. Okay. So then, internet using a computer that has paper punch cards. Okay, I missed that comment. Sorry about that. If you want to copy, paste, and put it in again, I'm fine with that. Right, because otherwise we filter from our own expectations. Right, we are all one. Jesse says. Right, like we are all like the children of God. That is what I think every religion is basically saying. I studied all the alchemical practices of the ascended masters. It's all BS, 95% truth, but that 5% will cost you your eternity. Jesus was not an alchemist in the human sense at all. Okay. I mean, I think Jesus was.
Yeah. A lot of people are pissed at Jesus. They're mad at Jesus because he kind of took some things and he took over, and because of that, he's really he's fucked some people up. Sorry, buddy, but I mean, he's a good guy, but he's got a lot of history with his mommy that he has problems with, and so because of that, there's been fights. There have been fights that have been going on between men and women. This isn't about good versus evil. This is about,
so you're talking Mary Magdalene versus man and woman. Mary Magdalene.
Very much about men and women.
But I mean, I kind of got the sense that like Jesus's real stance with Mary Magdalene and with his mother and with women was just obscured by 2,000 years of ambitious men trying to consolidate their power. So let's not tell the stories of equanimity and
Why not? It's about time because
no,
I
I'm
think
just saying. No, I'm saying what this is what the
yeah,
men have been, the men in power have been trying to say for the last 2,000 years is every time the Bible's been interpreted or translated or even put together, like they didn't put together the Bible, they didn't choose what was going to go into the Bible until 300 years after Jesus died. So it's like, okay, that leaves a lot of room for interpretation, and I don't think we can
so
take. I don't think we
yeah.
could say like whether or not.
Let's give Jesus credit. He's got
Yeah,
a
like,
lot.
exactly. Give him the benefit of the doubt.
He did a lot of things. He did everything that he could to make up for some past lives that he had, and but he was crucified. And honestly, getting your head cut off, like being crucified, is merciful compared to getting your head cut off. Because when you get your head cut off, it does things to your soul. It's like irreparable, almost irrevocable when that happens. And so Jesus came back and he taught compassion and he taught love, and which was something that he was very, very guilty of previously. And so he's very sorry. I mean, I've seen his life. I'm impressed with his life, but it's always been just like a dynamic between the men and women, between mother and son, and all that kind of stuff. And so what's happened is that men have used their physical strength and their logical side of their brain to really, really take over a lot of things. And there's things like punishments going on, and everybody's just fighting in that area. And the problem is if men and women can't learn to get along with each other, we're just going to keep fighting for the rest of all time and all eternity. So it's been going on for a long time, the power struggle. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, Jesus is used as an icon for religions to gather money. What really is a whore? That sounds really terrible, but he came and he defended.
Well, wait. But I gotta stop you right there, because somebody uses somebody else's name or likeness without their permission to do.
Yeah, they're abusing him.
So yeah, it's like that's not, but that doesn't mean that person.
But they're using
condones
him.
That. But it's like that doesn't mean that the actual soul that is Jesus Christ is
right.
Condoning that,
right.
or even complicit with that, because it's not. It's like people can you like grab a picture of us right here and then go use it to sell toothpaste or something. It's like doesn't mean I was trying to, or they could use it.
Yeah.
So it's like they could use it to.
Like you guys. I like Jesus. All right.
Okay. So. Somebody was saying about fractals, the creator. Why does evil exist among us? Is the creator choosing good or bad, or is he playing out every outcome to every choice? I'm not going to go into some of my ideas about it, but I'll go into the easier one. Is that if we're in this, we're obviously in this polarized world where there is darkness and there is light, there is negative and there is positive. It could be said that God is beyond that and God is just true love. There is no opposite to it. But we experience that there is an opposite to love. And if we're in its illusion where there is an opposite to love, which is fear and darkness, then, I think it's kind of like our job to cultivate the love out of the darkness. I'm lost here. The comments are moving so fast. Somebody was asking semantically, so please explain. Has no meaning to me semantically, so please explain. I don't know what has no meaning to you semantically, so please explain, because I missed the first line. Okay, God told me once that the human brain can't handle the whole truth. That's why Christ taught in parables. It's like trying to get on the internet using a computer that uses paper punch cards. Oh, yeah, okay. So that was Connie's message. And I think that's a cool, I agree with that. I think people need to learn in stories. And I think that's what really moves our hearts.
Yeah.
Anyway. So yeah. Yeah, and I think people during the days of that Jesus supposedly walked the earth, it's like that people were very primitive then. So you even like the kind of stories that we can create, with movies and whatnot and great books, is like they couldn't handle those kinds of stories. So you had to like have very primitive stories to even work with those people. So, you're taking the great light and filtering it down to a very rudimentary consciousness. But nowadays, I think we're ready for more. We're ready for bigger, better stories. We're ready for deeper cognition and greater experience of God.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey,
That's what I want to hear.
All right. Yeah. All right. Listen, God bless you all. Have a wonderful week. We'll be back next week, hopefully. So till then, have a blessed week. Try to, I don't know, no assignment. Just like, grace be with you. Maybe grace and love can lead you into some interesting experiences this week, and hopefully you could report back next week about some miraculous experience you've had because a little bit of extra love and possibly curiosity led you on a new adventure. Connie, let's hope we as humans involved with God are at least Windows 3.1 or Windows 95. Oh my God. God bless you. Bye.
Bye, guys.